Galactic Advisors CSO Bruce McCully is here to talk about news from Sophos, Acronis, and ConnectWise, as well as his new book, plus a special guest interview with HPE Worldwide Channel Chief George Hope on trends and opportunities in infrastructure in the data center. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 194, XXXDR. Hello and welcome to the ChannelPro Weekly episode number 194. My name is Matt Leck, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine program for the folks out there who are like you, the MSPs, the MSSPs, the IT integrators, the IT consultants, I don't know, you probably have a lot of acronyms and letters in your business title or name or whatever you do, and you probably work with products that have a lot of acronyms because that's what we all like. We all like letters. So welcome one and all. Glad to have you here. Joining me this week and most weeks is the man of the hour, the man who makes ChannelPro what it is, executive editor Rich Freeman.
You know, I always thought people got into IT because they're fascinated by technology, but now it's actually acronyms that they're into. And this is the industry for you if you're into acronyms.
It gets instilled in preschool. Like, I think if you have like a preschool teacher that tries to teach you the ABCs really young, those are the people that end up in IT because they get a love of the letters instilled within them from a young age. That's how it works, Rich.
Who knew? That's how to set a child on a solid career course. It
happens early, and I bet it even happened to our guest. We'll have to ask him about that, but we do have a guest today. He's had a passion for technology his whole life, in fact, one that he grew into an $8.5 million IT security firm. Today, he helps non-technical teams understand strategic risks and liabilities that come with tech. He's also a business coach, an avid speaker on security in the industry, and author of now 2 books, including the just-released Level Up, the Ultimate MSP Roadmap for Security Operations and Profitability. Please welcome the Chief Security Officer at Galactic Advisors, Bruce McCully. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
I should say welcome back. This will be your second time guesting with us. So we had a great, fun show with you in episode 157. So if folks want to go and check out, if they don't get enough Bruce McCully from this episode, they can go back and check that one out and get even more Bruce. We talked about a lot of fun stuff. Now, did you get your love of IT from your preschool teachers teaching you the alphabet?
You know, so I had dyslexia, so I was terrible at reading. I could get the letters, but I could never get them the right direction. And so I don't know that really applied to me so much. I'm kind of wondering if maybe I'm an imposter. That's probably what's going on. I really shouldn't be here today. And I'm here to talk about security, not tech. So I guess that'll work out. We'll do a little social engineering and kind of show you guys a little bit about how somebody could imposter their way into an IT discussion.
I can't wait to see how you pull that one off. But your love of tech, it's kind of what got you into this. Tell us a little bit about little Bruce. And there's a story that I've heard that you were, taking home school computers and tinkering with them, and you kind of grew that into what would ultimately be your career. Tell us how you got started.
Yeah. So, well, do you guys remember the Mac? The Apple IIe, like that little one with the green screen. And we couldn't afford one of those. I grew up on a farm in northern Michigan, and my mom was a teacher, so she brought one home from the school. And so she brought it home one summer, and I thought it was a really cool thing, but it didn't come with any software. So I had to take these little paragraphs out of books and type them in. And being dyslexic, it was a heck of a shot whether it worked out or not. But sometimes it would work out, and I'd fill the whole screen with "Hello World." And one afternoon, Mom and Dad were out baling hay, and they left me alone. They're I don't know, I was probably 8, and I was in the house, and I was playing with that computer. And finally, I decided, I wonder how it does this stuff. I wonder how it just comes up with this little language that doesn't match ours, or how this whole thing works. So I took it apart. I took it apart. It was completely spread around the kitchen table. Every single piece was out of it. I removed all of the different boards. I took all the jumpers off. Everything was taken apart because I wanted to see how it worked. And my mom came home. She was really upset. It was the first time I've ever seen her cry. And she Well, I actually learned a really important lesson that day. Like, if you can put together a computer, you might be able to save your life, because I got it back together and it worked. And I learned that I have a knack for kind of putting this stuff together and taking it apart. And here I am today. So that's what got me started.
All dangerous childhood tech stories start with a Phillips screwdriver.
Well, with that Apple IIe, you didn't even need a Phillips screwdriver. It was just like you unclick the back, and all of a sudden you're inside of it. So the Phillips screwdriver came a little later.
That's awesome stuff. I mean, my school had I never had an Apple at home. We had an Apple IIe at school. I remember that because that was the fun big machine. I didn't know a lot about computers back then, but it was the fun big machine that could play Oregon Trail.
I was going to say it's got to be Oregon Trail. It's either Oregon Trail or that stupid little game where you're like trying to eat the numbers. Like, I don't know if you remember that one, but
I do. And there was another one on it. There was the one that was like you were operating a lemonade stand.
Oh yes, the lemonade stand. Ugh.
Everything I know about business.
Role playing in the 80s.
I still know how many bags of sugar and ice and lemons I need to buy in order to maximize my potential profit return on street corners with glasses of lemonade, thanks to that game. Everybody needs to know that, Bruce.
Yeah, well, it's important. I mean, I would say, if you're right now building an MSP, that's probably something you should go back and take a hard look at, is how much sugar and lemons that you're going to need in order to really be successful in 2021.
Rich, and what is that number of lemons for you? How many lemons do you need?
Well, I'm thinking back to last week's show when we were talking about, know your numbers, the metrics that matter. We left this one out. And as a result, I have no idea. What is the optimal lemon number? Bags of sugar? I'm at a loss.
Well, we're going to have to get you a copy of the game, and then you can tell us next week after you thoroughly do your lemonade stand research. So, Bruce, it's great to have you back on. And it's always fun when you're here. I know the last time you were on, we were talking about some of your some of the things you do, like with you fly planes and you do a lot of that kind of stuff. We were still, I mean, when was 157? That was in August of last year. So we were still like thick in the pandemic. I'm sure you probably weren't flying around a lot, but you probably are now. Have you taken any fun and interesting flights over the last few months?
Well, I'm actually pretty excited. I'm just gearing up to get ready to go to Black Hat. So I'm going to be flying to Vegas, which is, I'm in Tennessee right now. So flying from Tennessee to Vegas in a small plane. I'm going to be flying a Bonanza P35. So if you're out there, you want to Google that, take a look at a picture of what that looks like. It's a V-tail Bonanza, seats 4, and it's not pressurized or anything like that. So we'll be climbing up just about as high as it can go to get over some of those mountains on the way through. So just kind of getting all that planned. And believe it or not, the planning part is a pretty big component of making it to Vegas when Black Hat starts versus making it a day after Black Hat starts.
How long a trip is that?
So it's gonna end up taking about 8.5 or 9 hours of flight time. And I'm going to stop about halfway. I'll probably stop in Albuquerque. It's a little over halfway. So I'm going to stop in Albuquerque, get some fuel, kind of rest a little bit, and then go on after that. And Albuquerque is always an interesting place to land because there's this box turbulence. They have a mountain there that is right on final, and it just creates this little feeder of turbulence. So there's a lot of mechanical turbulence, and not a great first time out place to land, and definitely not a great place for first time passengers.
I can imagine. Well, that sounds like it would be stressful. So how do you have to land, or can your plane do 9 hours of sustained flight? Well,
so I do have to land. So we can do about 5.5 hours, 4 hours and 45 minutes with reserves. You basically have to have enough fuel to go an extra 45 minutes, or else you're kind of making it a little too high risk. And so when I say with reserves, that means I just have extra fuel to fly around if I need to. And the problem is that I can't go that long. I like to stop at about 3 hours and 15 minutes for, bathroom breaks and that sort of thing. Cause, in the 4-person, 4-seat aircraft, there isn't a lot of space to go use the bathroom or, stretch your legs out and that sort of thing. So I would recommend about 3 hours and 15 minutes is a good stopping point.
Are you doing that flight by yourself, or do you have somebody with you?
Yeah, I'm going to be taking my partner, and he's a great co-pilot, does the radios most of the time. So he'll be on and talking to the ATC and all of that jazz and picking the next radio station and running all the nav stuff. So yes, absolutely. Not going solo.
Well, that's good, because using the jar to go to the bathroom is a little awkward when you got somebody else in the
right.
cockpit.
Well, they make this thing called a Little John, and it's basically like a little container that you can pee in, and it has the same stuff that diapers have in it, so it doesn't splash all over or dump. And I'd recommend that you just carry a couple of those, not because you're going to have to use them, but if you're going to be on a small plane for any extended period of time and there's any weather around, you might just want to have one of those along with you. I'm not saying you might use it, but it just might be something to pack.
Sounds a lot more sanitary than a 7-Eleven big gulp cup.
Maybe just a bit.
Just a bit. Awesome stuff. So one of the reasons that we wanted to get you on is because you've written one book before. We talked a little bit about it the last time you were on, which was called Plagued, the CEO's Ultimate Guide to HIPAA Compliance and Cybersecurity. But you have a new book out called Level Up. I mentioned it at the top of the show. Tell us a little bit about your new book and what it's about.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's been a little bit of news lately about MSPs and security stuff. And it just happened that I wrote this book last year. I mean, been working on it for quite a long time. I wish it only took like maybe a month or so to write a book, because then you could be like right on every time with when you release it versus when the event happens. But I released the book, the Wednesday before the Kaseya event happened. And there's a whole section in the book about hardening your RMM. And so it was perfect timing. And so basically what the book is about is about protecting yourself. I mean, we all know that there's a target on our backs as MSPs. And so I put together some tactics and some items that you can do to protect yourself and start to drive that security into your operation. So it's not something that, I mean, gosh, how many times as a tech person have you done a project and then come back through to secure it later? And this book is all about changing that to something that you do along the way. So security is not this albatross that you're kind of dragging along with you, but it's part of everything you do.
So with that in mind, I mean, kind of explain the title. What does leveling up mean in the context of the book, or just security generally?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, when I was writing this book, and gosh, guys, naming a book is like one of the hardest things ever, right? Glad I didn't name it Plagued. It would have zero chance of being found if you went searching for it now, right? After the pandemic. So level up for me means incrementing change and thinking about change inside of our MSPs. We're not really thinking about completely getting secure. We're talking about starting the journey and taking those first steps. And no matter where you're at with this book, you can move one level up. You can move to the next piece.
Looking at the book and what you're covering in there and how you're covering it, I suspect you wrote the book for the same reason that you started Galactic Advisors. I mean, you were an MSP, you sold that business. Is there a connection, in fact, in terms of target audience and who you're thinking about between what Galactic does and what this book is about?
Absolutely. And the way that, I mean, when I sold my MSP, I did it because I changed my personal mission. Like I had an epiphany that my mission of helping people was good, but I needed to really focus in on what I wanted to do when it came to helping people. And so I started a new mission to help protect 1 million people. And the book is actually helping with that mission. And if you do decide that, hey, I'm going to go read Level Up, I'm going to go and grab a copy on Amazon or whatever, you'll notice that there's a number of checklists and tools in it already there on things like hardening your RMM. I mean, just kind of focusing on the RMM for a moment, that go through things that you as an MSP can do. For instance, and I'll just kind of spend a second here on hardening your RMM, like some steps that you can take just because you gave me airtime. So when it comes to making it so that your RMM is secure, no matter where it's hosted, whether it's hosted in the cloud or whether it's hosted locally, one of the most important things that you can do is create security groups in that RMM. And there are 3 security groups I recommend. The first one is what I'd call the God security group. And that would be the account that you would use to get in and create new users and stuff like this. And you would only use it for those things. And maybe you have 2 or 3 accounts that fall into that section. You'd have a DevOps security group or a developer security group. This is the people that can create scripts. Like these are the people that are able to write scripts that you could then use for automation in your MSP, which is a critical piece of being able to scale and grow, right? Automating this stuff. And then finally, you have your service desk group. And the difference between the DevOps or the development group and the service desk group is DevOps can only run scripts on the test environments, which means you have like a small test environment. And the support users, the help desk, they can run scripts, but they can't create them. So if you ever have a compromise, like let's say you have an account compromise, it's going to be one of those support users because those are the ones that are logging in all the time. And you're not going to be in a spot where the attacker is going to be able to create a script and then blow it out to all of your users. So this is one of the ways, one of the tactics that you can use in order to help protect yourself. And this is the type of stuff that we're covering in the book that I put in here for MSPs that you can just go and do. Like you don't have to buy a bunch of extra stuff. Just get started and just level up.
And that's what I really like about the book is how loaded it is with practical, actionable information. There's nothing wrong, about discussing security philosophy, security principles, but this is actually really a lot of very applicable information that you can put to work. And you split it up into the different aspects of security. So you have a section dedicated to endpoint security and another one about perimeter security. Those are probably the most familiar parts of the security picture to people in the audience, although there are things for them to learn in those areas too. But you also have human security, application security, data security. From your standpoint, which of those areas tend to be the ones that the typical ChannelPro, it sort of knows the least about and maybe most needs to learn more about?
That's a tricky question. So from my perspective, I mean, and I talk to a lot of MSPs. We audit MSPs all the time, so we have pretty good insight into what their security tools look like. But from my perspective, it's the human layer. This is the part that we struggle the most with. I mean, I think it's because we've been, as kids, we were learning our A, B's, and C's, and we weren't learning how to interact with other people, I guess. I don't really know. But when it all comes down to it, when we talk to MSPs, I hear a lot of MSPs saying things like, I'm going to my clients and telling them they have to do this. And if they don't do it, I'm going to fire them as a client. Or if they don't do it, ... And so we're going to our clients and telling them things they have to do rather than taking the time to kind of educate them and communicate with them about why they need to do it and get them to actually think through what would happen. Like getting a client to think through what happens when they have a business email compromise. Like what happens when your Microsoft 365 account gets compromised? What do they get access to? And the customer, their first response, they're going to say, oh, they're going to get access to my email, no big deal. But then when you start to dig and you say, okay, so what about your contacts? What about all of the people that you communicate with? What could they do if they had all of your entire contact list? Could they email them? What would happen if they emailed them a malicious payload, for instance? And what else is in your email? Is there any banking account information? I know there shouldn't be, but maybe there is. And oh my gosh, if they do have access to your email, that means they're able to get to all of those encrypted emails that you've shared with other people. What are in those? And as we start to think about that, where do you store your passwords? Like, is it in an Outlook task somewhere? And so as you kind of go through and you get them to think through what would happen if they had a compromise, and then you can go to them and start talking about, well, how would you like to protect this? Because right now you're pretty high risk. Maybe you don't have MFA enabled. Maybe you're just sitting there with a simple password protecting your Microsoft 365 account or something like this, and getting them to then start thinking about what kind of investment they would have to make to change it. And I know turning on MFA is free, right? But there's also an investment. Like, it's an investment of time. It's an investment of going through and maybe having extra issues and all of this stuff. And when we forget to take people through that thought process and we just tell them they have to do something, we get in a spot where we start using up this relationship capital that we have with our clients, and getting in a spot where it's hard to maintain those relationships, and we start to kind of break that relationship we all spent so much time building.
As you were talking about that too, you reminded me of an article that you wrote for us at ChannelPro just within the last few months that we published, where it was a similar kind of scenario. You're talking about that very familiar situation to lots of folks in the audience, where you have designed the correct security solution for the customer. Here are the systems that you need to be running to be secure. You bring that to the client, and they come back with any of the usual kind of objections to that because of the cost, or I'm too small to be a target, or whatever it is. And you had a specific technique that you recommended there that gets you out of that "you need to do this or else" kind of conversation, and helps them understand why they need to do it. Just tell folks quickly what that is.
Yeah, so basically what we learned, and kind of a little bit more background. So, Matt mentioned Plagued. And the reason that I wrote Plagued is I was working with hospitals and we were recovering them from ransomware. And one of the things that we learned while we were going through and doing that, so we had an incident response team and a forensics team, and we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we never had to do this again? Like, wouldn't it be great if maybe we just went out and showed them where their vulnerabilities were, and they saw their vulnerabilities and they just went and fixed them? And so we started going back to these hospitals and doing vulnerability analysis and saying, okay, look, here are all your vulnerabilities. If you don't fix these, an attacker's going to get in, and it's going to be a big problem. And I remember this one hospital, we went in November. It was like Thanksgiving time, and we did a vulnerability assessment. And we identified all of these different things, and there's like three top items. And we were back in February to recover that hospital from a ransomware event. And it was terrible. It was like 700 and some workstations all infected with ransomware. Everything shut down, 60 servers down. And the attackers got in exactly how we said they would. I mean, it was number 2 on our list of 3. And so what I realized is, we have a problem. Like, this is not just an end user education problem. We have a problem all the way up and down when it comes to culture. And so what I recommended in that article is what we found worked inside of hospitals, and now what we're finding works for MSPs as well. And that is to go in and do a penetration test. The difference between a penetration test and a vulnerability analysis is pretty straightforward. With a vulnerability analysis, you're showing up and you're saying, okay, let me show you all the misconfigurations you have. With the penetration test, you're showing up and you're jumping through those vulnerabilities and you're saying, look, if an attacker wants in, this is how they're going to get in, and this is what they're going to get access to. And so you're basically going through and showing them exactly what an attacker is going to get to if they break into their network. And that creates this aha moment, which is critical for changing somebody's behavior. And when I was talking earlier about the human layer, I was mentioning the client side. this is also critical inside of our own MSPs, because we have, I mean, how many people on this podcast today are listening right now have ever had a technician or an engineer turn off some sort of security measure to make their job easier? I mean, I just talked to an MSP yesterday who was dealing with a breach of their RMM because one of their team members turned off multi-factor authentication. Like, this is a legit thing that is happening inside of our own organizations, inside our own houses.
Interesting. And where do you mentioned storing passwords? You still recommend the the notepad text file on the desktop as like the secure storage mechanism for that, right?
Absolutely. So if you don't have Notepad, Excel works really well at the same time, and you can actually put that on your OneDrive and have everybody accessing it at the same time. That's perfect. No, absolutely not. Do not store any passwords in Excel or Word or Notepad or the list goes on and on where we find passwords. One of the favorite things we find when we audit MSPs is we find runbooks, IT glue runbooks sitting around on, and I'm not dissing IT glue. They do a good job. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm not sounding bad about a vendor here. But the bottom line is like, MSPs, you download those because you want to look at them or you want access to them, or maybe you get a new client and the incumbent MSP sends you all that information in a runbook, which is a PDF file. And oh gosh, we get through to those all the time. I'd say 8 out of 10 MSPs that we audit have IT glue runbooks sitting around in their environment, and that's just incredible.
That is crazy.
That's not good. And it's important that you can finally set the record straight, Bruce. A password protected Excel file is not a secure storage medium, right?
Okay, so if you can submit a Microsoft ticket to get inside of the Excel file, it's not a secure medium. I think you could do that up until maybe 2 years ago. There's this guy on the dark web that does it for much cheaper though. So it's if you're looking to get into an Excel file, that's the best path to go.
Yeah, I try to tell people that all the time. It's like, oh, I have it in an Excel file, but it's password protected. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really matter, right? Like, that's not going to keep, that might keep like your kid out, but that's not going to keep anybody else out that wants to get in there. So very, very true. Interesting stuff. It looks like a great book. I certainly recommend everybody go and check it out. We'll put a link to it on our show sheet over to Amazon. It's available in Kindle format as well as the paper version. Do you recommend a version, or are both good?
This is going to sound terrible because I'm a tech guy, right? But I recommend the paper version. And the reason I recommend the paper version is it's just easier to read on paper. When we're doing the layout work and stuff like that with Kindle, it's all kind of funny looking and we have some diagrams and stuff in there. It doesn't work as well. So I would recommend the paper version. And, I would also just mention www.galacticscan.com/RMM-checklist. And that has a checklist on how to harden your RMM. So if you don't even buy the book, don't get the checklist and go through and make sure that you're hardening your RMM.
Good advice. Get the book though, folks. It looks like a good book. It looks like a good read. Not super long, a couple hundred pages, but from the reviews I've read, it's just packed full of great actionable information that you can take action on right away. So very, very good stuff. And of course, thanks for being on. Bruce is going to be with us here for the whole show. We got some news we're going to talk about, some from Sophos and Acronis and ConnectWise. We got another story we might get to about VPN vulnerabilities. If not, we'll talk about that one in a future show. An awesome interview coming up with George Hope, the worldwide channel chief for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, is going to be joining us. Can't wait to get to that and a whole lot more. So strap in, folks. Rich, let's dive into the news. Sophos is in the news. They're rapidly extending. It's extending. It's extended. Is that? Can you even do that? Is it obvious that it's extending if it's extended already? What does that mean, Rich?
You know what, Matt? The more extended your extended detection and response system is, the better that system is. So, and this, by the way, you said Sophos is in the news. For me, this is sort of like a catch-up story because we're alluding to something that just went up on the ChannelProNetwork.com website yesterday, and it's sort of me catching up to announcements that Sophos made earlier in the month, both of which relate to their extended detection and response, or XDR application, which came out in May. Beginning of the month, Sophos announced that it had acquired a company called Capsule 8. Last week, they announced they'd acquired a different company called Braintrace. And the common thread unifying both those acquisitions is the technology that they got with these companies is going to provide more input to their XDR product. So XDR is the hot new thing in security. People are, I'm sure, all familiar with endpoint detection and response. XDR is when you take that endpoint input and combine it with input from cloud security, mobile security, the firewall, et cetera. You have more inputs, more information to kind of correlate. It gives you a fuller picture of what's happening inside a customer environment. And so the Capsule 8 product gives them all sorts of new information about Linux servers and containers. Sophos, like most security vendors, has been very focused on Windows servers historically. Businesses of all kinds, all sizes, especially as the shift to cloud accelerates, are using more and more Linux. And interestingly enough, because I asked about this during the interview, I mean, is the fact that security vendors tend to focus more on Windows servers making Linux servers more of a target for attackers? And Joe Levy, the CTO at Sophos, said, yeah, it probably is. They're because they're seeing more threats directed at Linux right now. And part of that is probably the sense on the part of the attackers that the end users and the security vendors aren't thinking about that quite as much as the Microsoft stuff. So they kind of beefed up their Linux defenses there. The Braintrace product is a network security system that's going to bring more network security information into the picture. Now, they already were collecting information from firewalls, so it's not like this is the first time network security is part of the XDR solution. But this particular system from Braintrace is especially good at analyzing network traffic, network flows, even if it's encrypted. This software, according to Sophos, is very good at finding threats that can be hidden in there. So again, another source of input and insight. The other interesting thing about the Braintrace solution is that it does something that network management systems can do as well, which is it will go out onto a network and find everything that's connected to it. And typically what that's going to mean for a customer is it's going to find some networked assets that you didn't know about and that are essentially unmanaged and probably poorly or not protected at all as a result. And a lot of attackers will look for those kinds of devices, those sort of hidden, unknown devices on the network, and use that as a way in. This will actually kind of help you find and map out those systems. And then the last thing, I guess, to mention here as well about the Braintrace solution in particular, when Sophos rolled out its XDR product, it also rolled out what it's calling its adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem. And basically, that's sort of the platform for a vision that they have. They want XDR and security in general to go beyond their own products. They want security vendors and other kinds of vendors to be able to both contribute and export, pull out for their own use some of this security telemetry that products like Sophos XDR are generating. And so they have APIs and so on that they're creating to enable cross-vendor coordination. The Braintrace application, actually, in addition to doing this network flow analysis, is going to be the primary mechanism that Sophos uses to collect security input from its adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem partners on site at the customer. So it's going to be what's kind of funneling information from third-party solutions into the Sophos cybersecurity data lake.
That's a lot of extending and extensions and extending the extended extensions. Bruce, comments to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you might call that an XXDR, maybe a triple XDR. I'm not sure. I'm just saying, like, now that we've added a couple more X's.
the triple XDR. Careful searching that on the web, though.
Yeah. Definitely not safe for work. Don't search on that.
Yeah. It's
Go ahead, Rich.
Well, I was just going to say the first sentence of my article was talking about how Sophos is putting more X in XDR. And after I published the story, I realized, that may not be the message that I was trying to send.
I mean, it's all good stuff. I mean, Bruce, you're certainly more of the security guy. This we're seeing this not only from companies like Sophos, but a lot of these security products are kind of being extended, if you will. Anything here jump out at you that's like, my gosh, that's awesome? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think going after the containers and making sure that you're seeing the type of traffic and movement and behaviors that's happening inside of your containers, I think that's a critical piece that's kind of overlooked right now in most solutions. So I think that's a good step in the right direction. The other thing that's making me a little like raise an eyebrow is holy cow. Finally, we're getting some support in Linux land for XDR capabilities, but is it too little too late? Like there's a lot of stuff going on right now in Linux land. And if you're running an older version of the kernels, like older Linux kernel versions, you should definitely be looking at updating those because there's a lot of opportunity for attackers to get through those right now.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was reading that, it's like a lot of people believe like, once you go to Linux, you're safe. And it's like, well, you're only safe because they're not really targeting it, right? But I have to imagine that Linux is full of holes, just like anything else is. They just haven't been as exploited yet.
Well, I think that security researchers are working in both areas, Linux and Windows, and I mean, they're both showing up in the news. Like Linux this week had a security hole where you could get root access. And I think Windows showed up in the news too. If you saw the NTLM, we'll just share our passwords with everybody situation going on the Windows side. So I think they're both showing up in the news with vulnerabilities. It's just who has the time to go after Linux if it's not being used for enterprise. Now that it is more and more, that's when we're starting to see attackers start to push towards that direction too.
Yeah, and it goes to show you that how fast you can patch is really, really important, and you got to speed up patching and knocking those vulnerabilities out before they become exploited as a way to stay safe. So good stuff there, Rich. Let's go ahead and move on. We got Acronis in the news. They're adding file sync and share. That's interesting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is the latest step in their whole new model of how they deliver their products. So they're all about this, the unified vision of security and backup being really one function. And so earlier this year, they took a whole bunch of different security and backup and other products, rolled them all together into something called Cyber Protect Cloud, and adopted this really kind of interesting, innovative, I think, licensing model where anyone can go out and get a basic core set of Cyber Protect Cloud functions for free. And then the idea is if you want the more advanced functionality, you purchase what they call advanced packs. And they have these packs in place for security, for backup, for management. They added one in June for email security. And what they have just introduced this week is another advanced pack for file sync and share. So I imagine there is some basic file sync and share functionality in the free version of Cyber Protect Cloud. If you go ahead and get the advanced pack that's available now, you're also going to get file notarization functionality. This is actually something Acronis has been doing for a while, which is interesting, but it's just the ability to verify that a file you are looking at or sharing is in its original unaltered state. There is also e-signature, electronic signature functionality you get in the advanced pack. Both of those technologies are based on a blockchain, which is going to create an audit trail and again kind of enable you to verify the authenticity of the data. Some other things that they announced, they update Cyber Protect Cloud every month these days. So in the latest monthly update, in addition to rolling out this file sync and share pack, they also rolled out an integration with this ConnectWise command RMM system. I'm pretty sure they were integrated with Automate before, but now they integrate with command. They integrate with VMware Cloud Director now. CloudBlue PSA, which is the still relatively brand new PSA system from Ingram Micro. Matrix 42, which is a unified endpoint management platform. And then one last quick little thing I'll highlight, because there are some other updates they made that are discussed in this article I posted yesterday. But one of the interesting things they did was create a new role in the product that they're calling the restore operator role. And basically what it allows a technician to restore data for a user or for a customer without actually having access rights to that data. So from a security segmentation kind of standpoint, if you want to you want to enable somebody to recover data when that needs to happen, but you don't want to give them the ability to actually look at all that data, there is this sort of halfway role now that allows you to do that.
Restore operator. Do you have to press 0 to get to that person?
That would be convenient, actually, wouldn't it?
That would be convenient. That would be convenient. Bruce, lots of security related stuff here to kind of dive into as well. File sync and share. Normally when I think of file sync and share, I think like, well, everybody's got Office 365 or Google, and probably are using those. Is it hard to move somebody off of something like that convenient file sync and share to a third party tool?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a challenge in the market space for some of these new folks that are coming at it from the standpoint of, even with Acronis here, this is a freemium solution, right? Like they're really trying to get people to move over without having to open their wallet up. But I think that users are really getting used to using OneDrive or whatever their particular public cloud vendor is for some of this file sync share responsibilities. So I think that's going to be a real challenge going forward for some other folks that are in this particular industry, just to kind of get users to buy into it, get them to actually use it. Now, the restore operator is kind of interesting. However, I think, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that there's the same sort of permissions levels inside of Microsoft 365 that you can set, as long as you're not giving everybody global admin rights, which you don't want to do, obviously.
I do that all the time. What are you talking about, Bruce? Yeah, no, I was just sitting here thinking so much of functionality in Office 365 and Google, all collaboration almost requires you to use their file sync and share. I just don't, unless you're like a one-man shop and it's just your own files and you're not collaborating, I don't see how you could even use a third-party file sync and share.
Yeah, this is why I'm mentioning that, because it's I think that it's one of those situations where Microsoft or Google, whichever camp you live in, is really interested in having user ownership, and that ownership now includes data. And so as an MSP that's working through this, you're going to have to think about what your products look like and how you interact with those public cloud services, because if you're coming to your client saying, hey guys, you have to use my file sync and share product, you're going to probably run into some heavy pushback when it comes to collaboration, like using Word to be able to synchronize documents and all of those components that people are just used to now. Yeah,
for sure. Rich, any other thoughts in here? Any other interesting things that stood out to you?
No, I think we've hit the important points. I have a hunch there are more advanced packs coming from Acronis, though I don't think they've fully rounded it out yet.
And when they do, we'll be talking about it here on ChannelPro Weekly. So make sure, folks, you subscribe and check it out. And I also want to point out, too, for those who are listening, we're just kind of touching the surface of these articles. There's always a lot more detail in these. You definitely need to go to the site and check them out, channelpronetwork.com. Find the show sheet for episode 194, and then you'll get links you can follow along and read everything that is in here and get all the details and all the data. If you're watching on YouTube, open the description area. We put the links all in there for you as well. So check all those out as we go, where you can learn about this one and about ConnectWise, who's announced some lightweight reporting and cloud billing reconciliation. Rich, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me about this.
Well, you know what, Matt, this is kind of catch-up news as well. ConnectWise announced both of these things we're about to discuss here a week ago today as we were recording our previous episode, and I didn't get a chance to sort of catch up on what they had announced and what it was all about until after we were done. So not the newest of news here, but our first chance to talk about it on the podcast. Two things. First of all, for people who are familiar with BrightGauge, this is a reporting dashboard analytics tool for MSPs. Continuum bought the company a few years back, then ConnectWise acquired Continuum. So BrightGauge is part of the ConnectWise universe right now. They have introduced a new lightweight, sort of a starter edition of BrightGauge. And speaking of freemium, this is free. If you're a ConnectWise partner, you can now use a starter edition, if you will, of BrightGauge called BrightGauge Essentials for free. The full-blown product is highly customizable, very robust. You can build it around your business. BrightGauge Essentials comes with 4 pre-built dashboards, 3 reports. That's what you get for the low price of free. But if you want to begin collecting some analytics and have the ability to track key performance indicators for your company, and maybe even just experiment a little with BrightGauge and decide whether you want to invest in the whole thing, you now have that option. The other thing they rolled out last week is an addition, like an add-on to ConnectWise Manage, which is their PSA product, that they're calling ConnectWise Manage Billing Reconciliation. And the billing reconciliation process is kind of a painful ordeal that I think a lot of folks in our audience right now are familiar with. And this is when you're collecting consumption-based information from cloud solutions that your customers are using. You have to collect that and import that and pull that all together. Then you have to reconcile it against the customer records in the PSA system and turn all of that into invoices. And it's a very hands-on manual process for a lot of MSPs right now. This add-on is designed to automate that process. According to ConnectWise, you can get through the whole process using this tool in less than 10 minutes, which would be a lot less than I think a lot of MSPs are spending on it right now. And they, if you are purchasing cloud solutions through the ConnectWise marketplace, their cloud marketplace, it gets even faster because there is direct integration between their marketplace and this new tool, and you don't even have to get involved in moving the data around at all. So something to check out if you're a ConnectWise partner and you really hate billing reconciliation. There is now a tool out there that, according to ConnectWise, will make that a lot easier.
So, Bruce, it seems to me like the reconciliation thing would be a very, very useful thing for MSPs who are dealing with a lot of the consumption-based products and services.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about any MSP in the world that enjoys doing billing reconciliation. If you could make that easier, I think you'd have more tech people decide to become MSPs, because it's just like, I remember when I first started my MSP, I almost went out of business because I wasn't billing. You know what I mean? Like, this is a huge problem across the board for folks, especially, when you're getting started or you're a smaller organization. Like, you're busy helping people, and then, oh gosh, you got to go spend half a day doing billing. Like, who wants to do that, right? So, wow, that sounds like a pretty awesome tool. Can't wait to hear about it more, see it.
And so if there is somebody listening or watching out there who really loves doing billing reconciliation, send us a note in the comments, send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com. We want to learn more about you and how your brain works, because we're probably concerned about you. I guess the other part of this, Rich, was the BrightGauge thing. I guess we've been talking a lot about in our events and other events, and a lot on the site about just getting more insight into business. Is a tool like this, Bruce, something that folks should look at to help them get more of this this insight?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, when you're scaling your MSP, like when you're going through that time, like you got to 7 figures, so you're at $1 million, and you're pushing on towards 5 million. You really have to learn how to run the business from the numbers, and having 5 to 7 numbers that you can depend on and look at and know that they're correct and they're not garbage that you can see every day. Critical piece. I mean, we had to build out a whole custom system to gather that information as we were growing, and having it just handed to you as part of ConnectWise's solution. I mean, wow, that's going to be super helpful for a lot of people.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Well, Rich, I think we're going to move on now. We in the interest of time, we have a VPN story. Do you want to just mention it and have people go read it, or do you want to hold that for next week?
You know what? I'll mention it and people can go look it up. And in fact, it was on the show sheet for discussion this week because we had Bruce here. And there is a contributed article up on the ChannelProNetwork.com website right now about VPN. VPN has, it's not a new part of the IT or the security landscape, but in the age of work from home computing, all of a sudden VPN has become an even more prominent way of how a lot of ChannelPro's secure customers, what they're providing to their customers. And it is not a technology without vulnerabilities, without pros and cons. So if we had a little more time, it would have been interesting to get Bruce's take on VPN and maybe alternatives to VPN. But I would just advise people to check out the show notes. We'll have a link to this article, or you can just go to ChannelProNetwork.com and read the exploration of this topic there.
Excellent. Check out the show sheet for episode 194, folks, and go and check that out. With that, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by George Hope, the worldwide channel chief of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, as well as Mr. Bruce McCully will be joining us for that as well. Awesome interview. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. We've seen massive demand for cloud and hybrid infrastructure solutions over the past 18 months, but will that demand continue? What kind of infrastructure and data center opportunities exist for channel partners in the coming months and year? Well, who better to talk with us about that than the global head of partner sales and business development for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, who is responsible for driving the growth of HPE's rapidly growing $20 billion edge to cloud platform as a service strategy. Please welcome George Hope, worldwide channel chief for HPE. Welcome, George.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Matt.
It's great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. If you can, tell us a little bit about your role at HPE.
So I'm responsible for worldwide channels and ecosystems. So essentially that crosses our resellers, system integrators, service providers, all of our routes to market. So I've been in the role for 10 months so far. So I took over for Paul Hunter at the end of our last fiscal year, so last October, as he transitioned out of the role to be the managing director of North America sales. So great opportunity for him, and I had worked with him for the past 3 years running worldwide distribution for him. So he recommended me as the acting channel chief while they searched for the channel chief replacement, and then I wound up getting the job. So,
and what do you know? They had the channel chief the whole time.
I'm not an actor anymore. I am the real thing.
So you've got actually a pretty broad history in the IT industry, other than just the 10 months of acting or real channel chief, or however long that transition was. But you've been a lot of places. Tell us a little bit about your history.
So I was at EMC for 17 years. 68 quarters, I think it was, by way of our tracking system. I was there in various roles. So I was in sales, sales management. I was in channels and a bunch of different channel roles. So running anywhere from the U.S. channel, field channel team. So I think when I finally finished at EMC, I ran global channels for the Isilon division. So having an overlay channel organization and bringing Isilon into our channel business. So Oh, yeah, I did that for the last 2 years there, and then I left and went to SimpliVity, where I built out a global channel for them over the course of 3 years until we got acquired by HPE. So I've been at HPE now for a little over 4 years, maybe coming up on 5, and in various roles here. So like I said, I ran worldwide distribution working for Paul Hunter before I backfilled him in the worldwide channel role.
Interesting. I've never met anybody who measures their time by quarters. That's kind of interesting.
Never interviewed anybody from EMC before.
apparently not. At least not at that level.
Everything was about the quarter. The quota, as we say in Boston.
And does HPE measure time by quarters, or do you go by years?
Well, any public company does. Any public company is quarterly focused. You have to, meet the street's expectations, but EMC was maniacal. So I just got in the habit of saying I spent 68 quarters there.
It's a lot of quarters when you start to think about it. I should adopt that metric of measuring time in my own personal life. I can measure my kids' activities in terms of quarters. That might be
quarters
interesting.
Go by way faster.
It does. So I know that you're kind of up in the Boston area, New England area. Tell us a little bit about you and what things you like to do and what you do when you're not managing and growing digital ecosystems.
When I'm not sequestered in my basement because of COVID.
That too.
Yeah, no, I try to get out. I picked up this year, actually a year ago, I started taking online guitar lessons. So I'm a big music fan. I actually sing in a garage band with some IT buddies of mine. So, but then of course I was jealous that I didn't really know how to play anything. So I took the COVID opportunity to try to learn how to play guitar, and I think it would be a stretch to say I'm a guitarist, but I enjoy playing around with it. But family just became an empty nester, so I was enjoying time with my wife traveling until that got shut down, and but now that's opening up again. So
is that something you did like with your wife? Did she try to learn an instrument at the same time, or? No,
she doesn't. She's just a groupie. She's not she's not a musician.
So tell me. So did you buy like your own guitar? What kind of guitar do you have?
I actually had two guitars I bought 25 years ago when I first thought I wanted to learn how to play guitar. So I just had to go find them in the attic and dust them off. So I have a Guild acoustic and a Fender Stratocaster electric.
The classic stuff and vocals. That's awesome. You're a very talented guy. Very cool stuff. Bruce, do you play any instruments? Oh, Bruce, we can't hear you.
Well, no, I guess I hit the mute button there, trying not to get on screen by mistake. But no, I try to avoid anything that requires a lot of hand-eye coordination.
And so George, and we'll get on to the topics at hand. We got a lot we want to talk about with you, but where would you say you are at in your progression of becoming a guitarist? Are you like, what kind of songs can you play?
I can play the beginning of a handful of rock tunes. I can't play a song soup to nuts, and I can't sing and play at the same time. So if I'm gonna continue to be the singer, it's very unlikely I'll be breaking the guitar out at any point in time in a gig, because I can't do them both together. As Bruce mentioned, the hand-eye coordination, getting two hands going on a guitar at the same time is very, very difficult and requires a ridiculous amount of concentration, and you just can't do anything else while you're trying to figure that out. Your brain is just locked in. So.
It is difficult. I did vocals in a band when I was in high school, a long time ago, and I played the bass, not well, but like I couldn't sing and play the bass at the same time. It was basically an impossibility. I don't know how professional musicians do it. So, like,
you have to be able to play and sing. You have to be unconscious at playing, which I am far from unconscious at playing.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So, the whole reason that you're here and we want to have you on is to talk a little bit about cloud and hybrid infrastructure solutions. And let's kick off the conversation by talking about where we've been, say, with COVID in the last 18 months, because we know that's driven a lot of adoption in terms of cloud use. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen in the past, and then we'll kind of move from there.
Well, I've seen. I mean, what we've been saying, and Antonio Neri, our CEO, is a visionary. He predicted the world would be edge-centric, cloud-enabled, and data-driven. He called that out 2 years ago, and I think the pandemic made that a reality faster than we had all anticipated. So I think it became our vision a couple of years ago that we were executing to, and being the edge-to-cloud platform as a service company. He called out that the world was going to be hybrid early on too. So we've been marching to that tune, not to overplay the music references, but we've been marching to that tune for the last 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden, then when COVID hit, it accelerated the customer's needs to embrace that. So with all the work from home with a lot of the companies, and having to find different ways to meet with their customers and to embrace their customers, it kind of changed a lot of dynamics when the physical world turned virtual. So, we've, as much of a negative as the pandemic is, I think it's helped aggressively drive more business transformation than would have happened without it. And we're trying to now take advantage of some of that and help our customers get through what's pretty much a tough time.
The pandemic actually accelerated adoption of cloud and migration of workloads into the cloud. Yeah. But I know that the physical infrastructure, the on-premises infrastructure market, the data center market really took a hit a year ago when the pandemic began. Where does that side of things stand now a year later?
Well, it was interesting because we deal a lot, with our with a lot of our partners and our distributors, and when the pandemic hit and all the work from home stuff happened, a lot of the demand shifted. Their demand kind of stayed flat, but it shifted based on what they sold. If they sold endpoint products, if they were selling cameras and printers and laptops, the business for that went through the roof. The pure data center products like server storage kind of slowed down a little bit in the beginning of the pandemic, but Q2, our fiscal Q2 of last year is pretty much the bottom for us. I think the legs came out and everybody bottomed out there, but we've been growing since, and the economy has been recovering a lot faster than we expected. So the demand, when the economy started to come back, there was more predictability in what the future was going to look like. The stock market started going back up, businesses started to reopen, requirements started to increase, and there was more visibility into business opportunities. So people started to make those investments that had been backburnered for server and storage and network for a quarter and a half started to rebound. So we saw a very, very different Q3, and then a much better Q4. And this year, Q1, 2, and we're finishing up 3 as we speak right now, have been very good quarters for us.
You mentioned before, a couple of years ago, HP declared its edge to cloud vision, and that this was going to be where IT was going. The other thing you folks famously announced a couple of years ago is that you would be selling everything you sell as a service to your customers by 2022. What kind of drove that conviction, that belief that as a service is where IT is going?
Well, I think first of all, we said that everything. I think people you could read that statement a couple of ways. We're going to make everything available as a service. So if you want to consume it as a service, you can. If you want to consume it the traditional way, you still can as well, right? If somebody wants to just buy servers and storage, then we'll we will accommodate that as well. But we're seeing a shift in business models, and that's where we're kind of shifting our focus to. There are people that still want the traditional operating experience. They just want to buy gear and manage it themselves in their data center. There are others that want that cloud experience, so we're creating that experience for them as well. If they want subscription, right? And they want to consume some of our technologies, and we've made the move. If you've seen some of the compute and data cloud consoles that we've built under GreenLake, the move to subscription, the move with GreenLake to consumption, it's all about options, right? Customers get to buy, they want to buy how they want to buy, and our partners get to sell it to them the way they want to deliver it, right? Because what we've seen is the partner ecosystem is evolving as well, and partners are getting more services centric. As the public cloud has become more prevalent, they're starting to try to create stickiness around what the customers are already buying, and we're seeing that happen on the hybrid side as well. So we want to be as flexible as possible to what the customers are looking to buy and how they want to buy it, and give them the ability to consume it any way they want. So that's what we've so when you see us transitioning to everything as a service for 2022, we're well on our way to be able to add and to be able to sell everything as a service, but as well as like building in platform and workload capabilities along with that, and adding some functionality with some of our software offerings and some consumption to make it an even better experience.
There's a lot of discussion in the industry about the benefits of as a service from an end user, a customer point of view, in terms of, turning capital expenses into operating expenses and so on. But I know you have some thoughts about the potential benefits of going all in on as a service for partners, both in terms of their business and how they run their business, and the relationships that they have with customers. What is the potentially transformational opportunity for partners in terms of going in that as a service direction?
I think it's the flexibility that they can offer their customers and bring things to the table. So I think from an advisory standpoint, there's an opportunity for them to help the partners close the gap on what they can have a cloud experience on and what they can't have a cloud experience on, and I'll get back to that. So it's that advisory capability they can have from a services perspective in helping customers decide which workloads should go to the public cloud, which workloads should be a private cloud, and enabling that whole hybrid experience. But then once they enable that, a lot of the partners are starting, like what we're seeing is a lot of the partners are becoming service providers as well, and providing that managed services, whether it's they're managing it in your data center or they're managing it in their data center. They're starting to expand their models. So what we're seeing is kind of a blurring across multiple business personas for partners, that some of them want to build, some of them want to just sell, some of them want to service, some of them want to do all three, right? So if we can enable them through our ecosystem to be, to be persona agnostic, so to speak, and be able to be multiple types of partners within our program, and take advantage of advisory opportunities or managed opportunities or building other services on top of it, we think we can become the complete package from that perspective. So it's taking like GreenLake as an example and building APIs into partner systems, enabling things like GreenLake Central to have our partners being able to leverage GreenLake Central on behalf of their customers, and now manage those environments and add other services and solutions on top of that, gets them even stickier, right? So a lot of the partners look at the public cloud as something that could disintermediate them pretty quickly if they don't have other solutions, right? They can bring somebody to Amazon or Google, and then all of a sudden they're Amazon's customer or Google's customer, right? So there's a necessity for them to still remain relevant and be stickier. We think we give them those capabilities and the flexibility to have like a hybrid approach to the whole thing and be able to deliver some of those capabilities. So circling back to the original opportunity, we've said that the public cloud has been around for 10 plus years. You could debate how long it's been around, but still 70% of the workloads are still in the data center. And it's not for the lack of trying, right? Everybody was like, it'd be great if everybody could move everything to the cloud in their minds, right? And then just have that experience across every workload. But it's not meant for every workload. There are business restrictions, there's data sovereignty, there's latency associated with it. One of the biggest, I think, is application entanglement, right? Every application that they're running touches 5 to 15 other applications in their business. So if an on-prem app requires communication with an off-prem app, then you've got some challenges. So people have been going to the cloud, right? Antonio always used to say, cloud isn't a destination, it's an experience, right? People want that experience, and we can give them that experience in their data center or in a colo or at the edge, right? That's what we're offering through partners, and that's what differentiates our partners, is the ability to deliver that experience wherever the customer wants it. Maybe I over answered that. Sorry, but
no, that was great. But I do want to circle back, because you mentioned GreenLake in there, and we've spoken about that numerous times on the podcast through the years here. But for the benefit of folks in the audience who are not familiar with it, just let them know what GreenLake is. And then originally, as I understand it, GreenLake was chiefly an enterprise-oriented kind of offering, but you've been moving pretty swiftly into SMB, which is where our viewers and listeners mostly spend their time. So what's kind of the state of adoption of GreenLake and SMB, and where maybe are you seeing the most interest among SMB customers?
Well, so there's multiple pieces to that question, but what GreenLake is, GreenLake has evolved now to be our as a service brand overall, which is now kind of an umbrella brand that brings in our data services cloud console, our compute cloud console, our Aruba console as well. So now all of subscription is kind of being pulled into the GreenLake piece as well. But what GreenLake is our ability to deliver that cloud experience wherever you want it, right? So if somebody's dialing in, the easiest way to explain GreenLake is if somebody's dialing into the public cloud, they dial in and they don't care where it is, right? With GreenLake, we put it in your data center. We manage it, we meter it and bill you only for what you use. So it's that public cloud experience, but on-prem, but it's your gear, right? You may not own it, you may consume it as a service, but you know where it is, and your workloads are local and they're protected, and you have predictable performance and all of the things. Like it's a nice blend of that data center. You get the benefits of having your own data center and the benefits of consumption from a public cloud. And you can kind of blend them together and get the best of both worlds. So that said, there were some assumptions early on that, this is, if you're going to put stuff in somebody's data center, and they need to be a huge account, right? It needs to be one of your biggest global or enterprise accounts. That is not the case. And we've been consistently driving GreenLake further and further down market by making the offers more consumable to that mid-market customer through a program that we call Swift, which is where we have T-shirt sizes of compute and storage that you can buy in the size chunks that you want and combine them into your own data center experience. So, if you get down to, I think, $3,500, $4,000 a month type range for solution in like the 100K TCV area. So we've been able to package these things down market in T-shirt sizes that our partners can deliver, and make it easier for the mid-size customer to consume that as well. Because a lot of the mid-size customers think that their only option is the cloud. What we also do, though, is we have an ecosystem of service providers in that space that run their businesses on GreenLake that we can also introduce to our partners and customers that want to sell into that space. If you have a customer that is even further down market and maybe it isn't a solution for them, we can recommend another partner that runs on our technology that might be a local service provider that gives them the same experience, but can meet those lower thresholds for them.
I know one of the specific as a service opportunities that you see as being, particularly ripe for partners in the year or more ahead is storage as a service. What's maybe driving adoption of storage as a service? What maybe makes that an especially good way to get into as a service for a partner?
Well, it's probably the storage, the data services, cloud console, and the new storage strategy. I think is an easy entry point for people that may want to get into a GreenLake-like experience, but aren't ready to not own their storage yet. But it gives them it kind of gives them the best of both worlds. So if you think about our storage strategy, we kind of bifurcate the technology and the functionality. And for instance, so we've just come out with TETRA, and the TETRA 6000 and the TETRA 9000, both all NVMe, built on the original platforms of Nimble and Primera, but on steroids, right? With these two new offerings, great, stable, highly functional offerings. But at the end of the day, it's not about the hardware. It's about what it does. It's about the software and the functionality. So you buy a TETRA, you put it in your data center, you introduce it to the network, done, right? Then you go over to cloud.hpe.com, and now you have a cloud native experience in managing your storage regardless of where it sits. So you don't care that it is in your data center. You don't care if it's in a colo. You really don't care who owns it. You could own it. Your partner could own it. It could be part of your colo expense, right? That's that. And then there's the functionality of the storage that you manage via cloud native. Could be off your cell phone, right? You dial into cloud.hpe.com, and now you can do fleet management. You can do intent-based provisioning, and I don't know if you just saw, we just acquired Zerto. So DR as a function, I'm sure is on that roadmap for other capabilities. So now we have this data services portfolio that we can start to say, here's your list of capabilities that you can add to this, or not, right? That's it's a menu of opportunities for you to be able to take advantage of it and have a cloud native interface that drives a cloud experience that even that supports your on-prem investment. So it's kind of like you can have GreenLake can be you own gear and manage it via the cloud, or you don't own anything and manage it via the cloud, right? There are just a ton of options and a ton of ways that partners can take advantage of it, and a ton of ways that customers can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I want to get Bruce's perspective here for a second too, because I know from a security perspective, and there's a lot of risk about, and sometimes laws around taking your data and and stuff and storing it up into the cloud. So the solutions that you're talking about kind of bring a hybrid approach where where all of that data is, but you're still getting a cloud experience. Bruce, does that help from a security perspective? Like, what are the pros and cons there?
Well, first off, when I was running my MSP, it seemed like it was so much easier to sell as a service. So when we're talking, when George is bringing this stuff up, like when I was running my MSP and I was going to clients and trying to replace hardware or trying to get them to consider what they had in the data center versus, what they're using on the public cloud. It was always a much easier conversation. So first off, I think George is right on from that standpoint, but I guess he has all the market research to take that, but it also matches my experience just in the field. Now on the security side, I guess one of the questions that I would have, George, is just can you walk through how you can tell with the interface that you guys have generated where the data is at? Like, it sounds really cool, but is it very easy for me as a service provider to understand where that's located and articulate that to my clients?
Well, are you talking about as a service provider? Are you talking about as an MSP running full on GreenLake, or are you talking about somebody running the storage console?
Yeah, let's talk about just somebody running the storage console first, because I think that sounds like what my client, especially if it was a co-managed situation where there's an IT person that I'm supporting as a managed service provider, what kind of information they would be able to glean from that interface?
Well, when they're in the console, the data is in their data center. The data is wherever they want it to be. Yeah. But like I had meant the earlier example I used, you could have you could have the Alletra 6000, you could have 6000s and 9000s in your data center as an example. And in the future, you'll be able to have, the console will be working, backward compatible with Nimble and Primera and other solutions. So you have a number of things in your data center that have different capabilities. When you're in the cloud console, like the thing we have in there, the intent-based provisioning is asking you about the attributes of the data and the workload, and it's helping make a decision where you should put it, how you should protect it, and how you can access it. So that's part of the functionality of the tool. So either the customer is counting on their partner to be able to make those decisions around the workloads and inform the tool so that the tool can make the decisions and put it in the right place. I guess you have to trust that the tool is written such that it's going to protect, it's going to take your mission critical workloads and put it on the Alletra 9000 that has 100% uptime and blah, blah, blah. So it's helping you determine without you having to figure out, okay, I've got files, I've got LUNs, I've got, a whole bunch of things that go into storage management. We're taking the guesswork out of that to make the customer experience easier so that you get more efficiency out of the system.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. So as long as the service provider is handling it on the intent-based provisioning portion, then the end user doesn't even have to worry about it because it's all just taken care of from that perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome.
To shift gears a little bit here in our remaining time with you, there's a lot of discussion among our readers about what they want from vendors, the kind of relationship they want to have with vendors. You're responsible for thinking about that from the vendor side of the relationship. So, what's your philosophy? What's the HPE philosophy on the right way for a vendor to work with its partners?
Well, I've been with HPE for 4 and change years now. HPE has been, and I can't take credit for it, but HPE has been channel centric for 75, 80 years, right? So we're a partner first company just in general, and everybody's very, very involved. So as an example, when we used to be able to have in-person partner advisory boards, we would have our partner advisory board in for a day and a half, and Antonio Neri would spend a day and a half with the partners, right? How many CEOs do would come by, would spend the full time at the partner advisory board, let alone, maybe stop by and give everyone a wave in the door. Hey, thanks for, coming or whatever. He's very, very, very involved. And so our culture just in general is partner centric. So we're always trying to get ahead of what the partners need and provide that for them. So as you mentioned, I think I alluded to it earlier in it, but when the partner ecosystem is starting to evolve and we have different types of personas with the partners that, like I said, want to build, or some partners just want to sell. So we have to have that sales relationship with them with the right incentives and the right enablement to make them successful. Others want to be more part of the services. So we have to make sure that we give them the APIs and allow them the capabilities. Specifically around GreenLake, we have this thing we call powered by, right? Powered by GreenLake. We want the partners to lead with their IP and bring GreenLake in. Like we want them to go to customers with an offering that's centered around what they do and what they provide and the services that they offer, and have it pull GreenLake. By the way, this is powered by GreenLake, right? So they leverage GreenLake to create a greater experience for the customer. So that's ultimately what we're trying to get to for them. There are others that they want to just build. They might be an ISV that just wants to they want to have the APIs into GreenLake so that they can make the customer experience around their software even better by leveraging GreenLake. They don't want to be part of the transaction, but they want to be able to leverage some of the capabilities. There's opportunity for them in our ecosystem as well. Like some of the SIs, as an example, some of them are IT outsourcers, and they're gonna buy it from us and be the MSP, and we want GreenLake to help them provide a better experience for customers and be able to make money doing that. Other SIs just want to be more advisory. They want to help influence it, and we need to educate them on what it does so that they can be better up to speed on what the capabilities are, because they're making the recommendations and they want to make the right recommendations for them. We're also seeing, like I said before, we're seeing partners with multiple personas there. We're seeing a lot of resellers that are getting into the managed services business. So, we want to have a single relationship with them that contemplates their two personas versus having two separate relationships with them. We want to be able to collaborate with them more and give them the tools to be successful and stickier, and give them a bigger, path to profitability.
Yeah. Do you ever worry about a competitor coming along? Because you've done all this work about saying powered by GreenLake, that they come along with their own product called Blue Lake, and wouldn't that be really confusing?
We worry about our competitors all the time, Matt.
So I got time for one more question.
Blue Lake. Lakes are typically not blue. Oceans are blue.
What is the right colored lake? That I want to know. Is green the best color for a lake?
That's a good question. I tend to think of algae when I think of green, but our green lake is the money. It's the opportunity that you can create, and it's that stickiness. Our lake is the most profitable lake. I like
lakes of money. It's a money lake.
Think of it as a money lake, yeah.
I like that. That works out well. That could be a band name, Money Lake. You never know. So let me ask one question, and then because I think we have time for one more. Looking forward down the road,
yep.
If you can make 3 predictions of what you see, in infrastructure and hybrid and cloud that is going to affect SMB partners, what would those 3 predictions be?
Ooh. Specific to SMB?
Yeah, I think it'll be more SMB specific.
I think we're that the SMB world will become hybrid, not to steal Antonio's, everything is hybrid, but I think there's more of a hybrid opportunity for the SMBs with GreenLake or with overall our consumption model. So I think with the SMBs, there'll be another option for them with hybrid that they may not have seen before. They may think that their options are, buy stuff and run it, or, go to the public cloud. So I think there's an option there for them. I think you'll start to see AI start to come down market a little bit, maybe the mid-market first and SMB after. But I think as we move, from the information age to the age of insight, I think it's not about just about the data and storing it. I think it's about what you glean from it that makes you serve your customers better, right? So there's so much opportunity to scrub that data and take those insights and turn them into revenue. So I think that'll start to come down market a little bit. I'm trying to think of a third one from that space. I think what I think we'll see more in that space is a collaboration between different types of partners. So as we set up our ecosystem so that the managed service providers and the resellers that don't have those capabilities can partner on those opportunities and or take that capability down market and enable those partners, those customers to focus on their core businesses. I think there's a big opportunity for our partners specifically in that space, where in the SMB in particular, if you're a doctor's office, right, you're focusing on, curing patients. You're not focusing on, running those applications, right? So I think there's an opportunity for the partners able to cater to that space and not only sell them things, but help them shape their decisions and give them advice. Because what I don't quite see in that space is that people are just going to buy things, and I don't even I can't buy a flat screen TV without my TV guy, because I can't hang the thing on the wall and connect it and hook it up. It's not just buying a square thing and putting it on a table. It's now more complicated than ever. So I think partners can embrace that confusion in that space and giving those customers the ability to focus on their core competencies. And in that opportunity for partners, mystery equals margin, right? So there's an opportunity for them to make money servicing that space. So
awesome. Well,
kind of like 2.5. It's not. I don't know if it's quite 3, but.
No, I would say that's 3. Those are really good predictions, and I think you're dead on. I think we are going to see some of that going forward. So we got maybe 1 minute left, and I want to close this out by saying, HPE is awesome, with coming up with really cool brand names for stuff like GreenLake, and I kind of joked a minute ago about that GreenLake might make a good band name. You said you have your band is a bunch of IT buddies. Do you have a IT band name?
Yeah, it's not an IT name, and I don't want to tell you the name because I don't want anybody Googling us. This call. Well,
I'll ask a different question then. Of all of the cool brand names you said, I thought a couple stood out that might be really cool band names. Like GreenLake is one. Primera, I think, sounds like a pretty cool band name. And Electra 9000 sounds interesting. So if you had to pick one of those as your band name, George, which one would it be?
Oh, I'd probably have to go with Primera, because that would mean we're the best band.
I love it. Bruce, what would be your pick for an IT band name?
I'm going to go with the Money Lake. You said GreenLake, but I think Money Lake sounds a little better to me. So I would definitely be I'd definitely playing for the Money Lake.
Going Money Lake. Rich, what are you going for?
You mentioned Electra 9000. That actually sounds like a band name. I like that.
I like that one too. Electra, and then there was Nimble and Primera. That could also be a band name. All very cool stuff. So bands out there, if you ever need a band name, just go look through HPE's catalog, and you'll be inspired by tons of names. George, thank you so much for coming out and joining us and talking about this. If people want to learn a little bit more about you, get in touch with you, learn more about HPE, GreenLake, and a lot of the solutions that you guys provide, where can they go? How can they do that?
Just email me, george.hope@HPE.
Fantastic. And with that, George Hope, the Worldwide Channel Chief of HPE, thank you again for being on and joining us. It was great having you on, and I hope you had a lot of fun. And I hope.
No, I did. It was great. Thanks, Matt, for having me. Rich, Bruce, great hanging with you guys.
I hope we get you back in the future. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Bruce McCully will be joining us on the other side. We've got some regular end of the show features we're gonna do. Bruce has a museum pick he's going to share with us. That should be a lot of fun, and we'll have some other fun as well. Stick around for that. We will be right back. And we are back here for this part 3 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. Welcome back, one and all. Welcome back. Bruce McCully is still with us here. Say hello, Bruce.
Hey, guys.
Awesome interview with George Hope. Rich, anything stood out to you that you wanted to mention about that particular interview?
Just that if you haven't, there's been so much attention on the public cloud piece of cloud in the last year and a half. I think so many experts really believe that hybrid cloud is going to be the model for the foreseeable future. So if you haven't been paying a lot of attention to the on-premises or the private cloud piece of hybrid cloud, I think there was some really interesting conversation there about how you can deliver some of that traditional IT infrastructure on an as-a-service basis in a cloud-like kind of model, and help customers collect the experience, as he said, and as HP says, of the cloud without necessarily going all in on public cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce, any thoughts that you had from that interview?
Yeah, the more options that you have for your clients to give them ways to be able to update their solutions, whether it's their firmware, their software, or in this case, their hardware, the whole gamut, the easier it is to get people to buy into taking that next step. So if you have folks out there that are dealing with older infrastructure and they're not able to update their operating systems and that sort of thing, what I found when I was running my MSP is if you had an option that allowed them to just start paying a monthly invoice for that, it was really effective. And this sounds like a way to do that without having a lot of capital that you're personally laying out there. So I think it's something to look into.
Awesome stuff. Excellent. Well, I agree. It was a great interview. George is a very interesting guy. Lots of fun. So glad everybody got that. Hopefully we'll get him back down the road. So Bruce, we've been playing a lot of 5 questions on the show the last several episodes, mostly because, folks, I hate to admit it, but I've mostly run out of old things that I own to talk about. I was joking with Bruce McCully before the show started, and I said, I've got a big drawer full of network cards, but boy oh boy, how many 10100 network cards can you talk about and have it be interesting? And the answer is 1. And after that, it's all pretty much the same thing. So I've got a couple things I think I'm holding on to that I'm going to try to use over the next few episodes, but we're going to re-envision the museum piece segment for the show in the future. So that way we can talk about some stuff that maybe I don't own, but it's awesome when we get guests on that have some older, cooler stuff to talk about. And Bruce came on today and he said, I got something interesting to talk about. And I'm like, yay, because we haven't been able to do one of these in a while. So Bruce, what is your museum pick?
Well, first off, I have to admit, this isn't quite a museum pick. Like, this would be like the Museum of Modern Art, right? Like, it's not necessarily like something that's super old, and it's not as old as that 3Com network card that you have sitting in your drawer there. However, what my pick was a Wi-Fi Pineapple. This is a Wi-Fi TETRA. And the cool thing about it is, it's been around since like 2008, so it's not super, super old. But the cool thing about it is it still works. And the way that it works is you can use it to, break into wireless networks. I mean, how fun is that?
So how does it do that? How does it break into wireless networks?
Well, there's a couple things you can do with it. The obvious first thing you can do with it is just enumerate networks and see what you have around you from a security standpoint. So it's great for kind of analyzing what type of security people have in play when it comes to their wireless network. So this is something that if you're doing pen testing, you'd be on site to do, right? Like, you can't do this through the internet. This is not something you get to do in your pajamas. You're going to go and use this type of tool. You're going to be on site. You're going to be dropping it in. But then the other cooler things is you can spoof wireless, which is kind of fun. So you stand up another wireless network, and all of a sudden you get devices to start connecting to yours instead of the actual wireless network, and you start engaging in what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, where you start reading all the traffic that's coming across your Wi-Fi Pineapple. Pretty cool, right?
And what would the Nefarious do with that kind of ability? Bruce?
Well, you can use it for everything from gathering information about your victim, right? So just like where they're going and all that other jazz. You can actually crack traffic. So if you set everything up properly, you could push the traffic through your system and actually review the data as it comes through. And you might be able to use that to find out some things like tokens or passwords or all that sort of fun stuff. And then obviously you can use that to further your attack.
Interesting. So so that'll lead into the tech pick. So because I like to kind of play that was then, this is now. The tech, my tech pick this week will be the newer version of the Wi-Fi Pineapple. I went ahead and picked out the Wi-Fi Pineapple Mark 7 Tactical. It looks pretty cool. In fact, I can, for those who are watching, I can put it up on the screen here. Sorry, I should have thought of that in advance.
And you picked the tactical one too, which means that, it comes with a little bag and all the fun stuff. So if you're traveling, this is the thing to have, right?
This looks, and it's got a pineapple painted right on the front.
The old one doesn't have a pineapple, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's neat art. I like the bag. It looks pretty cool. So now I played a little that was in this is now, but what does your older one not do that the new ones do? Because you said yours is kind of obsolete now, but it still works. But like, what can't it do that these do? Yeah,
well, it's just about wireless standards changing over time, right? So this one's about 2 or 3 years old, so doesn't support the new wireless high-speed standards. So that's the only thing. So not a big setback, but still something that, maybe I'll have to go buy a new one too.
Maybe we'll get you one for Christmas, right? It's coming. All right. Very cool. I love the pick. So that is Bruce's Museum pick, the Hack 5 Wi-Fi Pineapple TETRA. And of course, we'll recommend the newer version of that, the Mark 7 Tactical. Check that out when you get a chance. Neat stuff. Rich, we've got a few minutes left. Why don't you take a look at what we might have missed in the past and then look forward into the future, because you have this ability to do that somehow, and tell us what you see.
Well, in terms of the past piece of that equation there, every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com, we publish our In Case You Missed It post written by our own James Gaskin. This week, he will catch you up on those big, expensive, ambitious processor manufacturing plans from Intel, new stuff from OpenText, Extreme Networks, UMA, and also James will have a few thoughts for you on a bar for dogs that opened recently. And apparently the humans are welcome to go there too, but you're probably not going to enjoy the cocktails as much. Check it out in case you missed it. Now, looking ahead to next week, it's actually kind of a big week. We here at ChannelPro, this is the biggest thing obviously happening next week, is we are hosting our Cybersecurity Online Summit. It's the second of those for 2021. So if you are not already planning to be there, please go to events.channelpronetwork.com and register. This is a virtual show, plenty of room for you, and lots of awesome content to check out. But also happening next week is CompTIA's annual ChannelCon event and Black Hat. So a lot of big conferences to look forward to next week.
And Rich, I'm surprised you didn't mention the other big thing that's hitting the site next week. It is the 2021 Readers
Choice Awards. You're right. On Monday, August 2nd, our annual Readers Choice Awards go live on Monday, folks. 50 categories. You voted for your favorite in all the product and vendor and distributor categories that matter. And check it out. I guarantee you all the vendors and distributors will be checking it out Monday morning. Go check it out for yourself at channelpronetwork.com.
See, Bruce, you can lead a horse to water, and it will drink sometimes. How about that? Now, so the Cybersecurity Summit, I believe, is Bruce joining us for that one, or no?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if you're on one of those panels or not, Bruce. I think not. Maybe this time.
I don't think I'm on this time. I think that I'm over at Black Hat this time.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're doing Black Hat. Okay. Well, I'm sure you will see Bruce McCully at another ChannelPro event in the near future, just not next week. Sorry about that. I thought I might have saw your name on the list.
Boston, Massachusetts, September 2nd.
That's the one I was working on the graphics for that one the other day. That's where I saw your face. Okay. So check out Bruce McCully in Boston for the ChannelPro SMB Forum. That date is September what, Rich?
September 2nd, Thursday, September 2nd.
Awesome. Hopefully we'll get folks there to check it out. Bruce McCully, Chief Security Officer of Galactic Advisors, thank you so much for joining us again here on ChannelPro Weekly. I hope you had a good time.
Always, guys. Thank you.
And for those who want to get in touch with you, get to know you a little bit better, learn more about Galactic Advisors, buy your book, where can they go?
Yeah, you know what? Just swing by www.galacticscan.com. So www.galactic, like it sounds, and then scan rather than advisors.com, just a little easier.
Excellent stuff. And of course, you can get his book, Level Up, the Ultimate MSP Roadmap for Security, Operations, and Profitability. It's on Amazon right now. Visit the show sheet for $194 and grab the link to that and pick that up. You don't want to miss it. And of course, folks, you don't want to miss an episode of ChannelPro Weekly. The best way to not have that happen to you is to subscribe. Go to YouTube if you like to watch. Hit the subscribe button and the little bell. Otherwise, hit us up. Put any podcast service out there. We're on Google, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. You name it, we're there. You'll find us there. And if we're not there, my gosh, let us know and we'll make sure we get it in there for you. And then have ChannelPro with you with each and every week. And of course, visit channelpronetwork.com. That is the website. That is your homepage. Go there for all the news, articles, white papers, resources, downloads that is going to help you make your business more profitable, better, service your customers, and help you keep on top of what's going on. Follow ChannelPro on the socials. We're pretty much on all of those. And email us. We want to hear from you. podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email address. Send us your questions, comments, thoughts, things you want us to talk about, guest ideas. Hey, we want to make this show for you. Make sure that you do that as well. And with that, we'll say goodbye to Bruce McCully and Mr. Freeman, and we will see everybody in episode 195 next week.